Well, Ventura, as you can see, the set is empty. That's because we've all gone to Peru. We've gone down there, our cleft lip and palate team, Sue Wallace, our coordinating nurse, Dr. Bill Starr, our plastic surgeon, Dr. Mike Morissette, our oral surgeon, Maria Arismendi, our pediatrician, Dr. David Perlmutter, family physician who's volunteered his time for over 40 years, and Terry Weiser from the Technology Development Center. We've gone to Peru, and you're going to see some great work. So Ventura, it's time, come on, get moving with us.
Se va enfermando por un beso tuyo, no sé qué hacer. Ángel que cuidas, vida y amores, sabes que tú eres la flor que quiero. Siento que mi vida está en tus manos, por un beso tuyo, no sé qué hacer. Enfermera, dame de tu amor. Enfermera, no me hagas sufrir. Enfermera, no me hagas llorar. Cúrame las penas del corazón. Enfermera, dame de tu amor.
My guest is Dr. Michael Morissette. Dr. Morissette has helped us with our cleft lip and palate clinic, and taking time out of his private office because this is something he likes to do. But you keep telling stories between cases. We always are telling about our children or our pets or whatever. But you had a very special story to tell, and to let the viewers know about kind of how did Peru come into our lives?
Right. I've been traveling with Dr. Bill Starr, our local plastic surgeon, to Honduras for a couple of years to do cleft lip and palate work with him and a few other members of our team. So I started to go to these third world countries, and I went back to one of my undergraduate reunions at University of Notre Dame one year, and a classmate of mine is now a Catholic priest, and it comes to find out he's a Catholic priest. He's been living in Peru for a number of years, and he gave us a presentation of what's going on in his parish in Peru and how poor and what they're actually doing there, and he offered any of our classmates to come down and visit with him. He has a church and a parish, and he actually has enough room for about 50 people to stay at his church parish community. So I saw the presentation, and I decided, you know, it was something that I wanted to get involved with. Again, relating to the fact that the deformity of cleft lip and palate is a very common deformity in Latinos. It happens in 1 in every 700 births. So I wanted to go back down there and see if there was some way I could help out with cleft lip and palate and also visit my classmate, Father Joe. And so I visited there 3 years ago at his parish and stayed there, and I met a local plastic surgeon, and I could see the good work that they were doing there. I ended up spending more time in Lima, Peru on that trip, and I have subsequently been back to Lima, Peru, where I do cleft lip and palate work, but also give lectures and teach. But coming back with the information on Father Joe, you and Dr. Starr were interested in my connection there and wanted to travel back to visit Father Joe. And I thought it was a great opportunity, actually a very good location to bring a team like our cleft palate team down. All of our members, nurse, pediatricians, everybody was going to be very useful and very helpful. So with your suggestion and Dr. Starr wanting to go back, we did make arrangements and connected with Father Joe. And so my connection goes back to when he was an undergraduate at Notre Dame. At the time, he wasn't interested in being a Catholic priest, but he had the calling a few years later, and I know you did an interview with him, and he presents himself really well, and he gives you his track of how he went from, I guess, high school in Oklahoma City to the University of Notre Dame and so on to Rome and Israel, and did his studies and ended up in a parish in Piura, Peru, where he's doing a lot of good for the people there and affecting a lot of lives, and I think he plans to stay there.
Well, Notre Dame had the tendency of pointing us to doing something good for the world. It was just a tendency, especially for the poor. And Father Hesburgh, the president, told us 20% of the people in the world enjoy 80% of the world's resources, but 80% of the people in the world only enjoy 20% of the world's resources. Well, I figured I'd had my share. I had a very enjoyable youth and a good education. So I figured, well, I'm going to see what I can do for those who have not had the same opportunities.
So where did that start? Because again, even with that kind of direction, and to know that people actually listen to those addresses is wonderful. But where did you start? Did you start in the town you grew up in, or?
Well, Mother Teresa of Calcutta had won the Nobel Peace Prize my senior year at Notre Dame, and I figured here's a voice that has found a valid way of serving the poor. So I went to the South Bronx to work with her sisters, and she would come to visit from time to time, but there was a soup kitchen, a refuge for men that were living on the streets. That's where the journey began.
I think he talks about how we all have gifts, and some of us can pound a nail or bring food to the poor, and so you brought your gift as an oral surgeon there. What were some of the surgeries that you did while you were down there?
Yeah, normally when we go down there, we try to perform cleft lip and cleft palate surgery, which are the basic surgeries that are performed for this deformity. Normally, cleft lip and palate require anywhere from 6 to 9 surgeries in the lifetime of a child growing up from birth to around age 18. And in Central America and South America, we're just hopefully trying to get the first 2 surgeries completed for children. In some of the third world countries, girls will never get married if their lip is never repaired. So it's such a deformity that's so obvious and it's such a simple repair. We can repair a cleft lip in 45 minutes to an hour, even a bilateral lip. So you can make such a change in a child's life. It'll affect them for a lifetime. And when we repair the palate, it's not a cosmetic problem. And as you know, it's a feeding problem for many kids. And actually, some children actually still die in third world countries because they're not able to take nutrition in.
And you're right, we present our hands and our faces to the world. And so bringing a smile back on someone's face and just allowing them to be socially acceptable, it's a huge service that you're giving. Well, as an oral surgeon, what are the kinds of things? I know you've just moved your office here in Ventura. Where did you move?
Well, I've been practicing in Camarillo for 20 years, but I've been involved with the cleft in Ventura for about 11 years now, and I'm also involved with the facial trauma that occurs in the county, and so we do a lot of facial trauma as well. So I have another office now in Ventura on Loma Vista, just below Ventura County Medical Center. I started there in January. Another surgeon who was practicing there has a disability that's preventing him from practicing further, and so I'm taking over his practice from where he was. So I'm a little closer to Ventura. I'm coming up a couple days a week for the facial trauma and the cleft team, so it's actually working out very well that I have practices in both places.
Who else is on a cleft palate team? So we have a prosthodontist, someone to help with the...
Cleft palate teams are basically teams that are formed in areas to help. A child needs a lot of different specialists, and so we put all the specialists in the same area in the same team. They found that throughout the United States it's the best way to treat a child born with a cleft. So in our particular team we have a plastic surgeon who's our team coordinator, of course, Dr. Bill Starr. We have a pediatric nurse, Sue, that actually helps with the feeding problems that you mentioned about. So when a child is born with a cleft lip and palate in Ventura, they normally will contact Sue immediately to help them with the feeding issues that can occur. And sometimes there's not feeding issues. Sometimes the child's able to breastfeed or take from a standard nipple, but oftentimes there's feeding issues, and it's really important to identify these early on because we don't want a child to lose weight or a baby to lose weight, especially in the first 10 days of life. We also have a speech pathologist. We happen to have a world-renowned speech pathologist on our team. She's written books, and she is well known throughout the world for speech pathology, specifically children born with cleft lip and palate, Dr. Judy Trost-Cardamone. She's a wonderful speech pathologist, probably one of a handful who has a subspecialty in cleft lip and palate. We also have a pediatric dentist on our team that'll show up to evaluate the children's dental situation. We have an orthodontist, which is a key member of our team, because all of these children that are born with cleft lip and palates have dental deformities that require braces at some point in their lives. So we have an orthodontist that follows our team. We also have a social worker, because it's really important to assess the social status of these kids. What kind of family life are they having? How are they progressing in school? We sometimes will refer patients to a geneticist if there's more than a cleft lip. In certain situations, they're related to a syndrome, so we might want to find out if there's a chance that the child will have a sibling with a similar condition, or other conditions, or other underlying disorders that we want to know about early. Of course, we have pediatricians like yourself who help us every clinic to come in and evaluate the day-to-day status of the children. And it covers about 6 or 7 members of our team, so it's a well-rounded team. We treat probably 30 to 50 clefts here a year, I'd say, in Ventura County. And some get referred in from other centers or move up from Mexico or LA. So we actually, in addition to the births that occur here in Ventura, we get additional members that are moving in from Bakersfield and other areas.
Well, thank you. I think we're looking forward to helping with video teleconferencing, helping them develop those services down there as well. And I really thank you for your time today.
Appreciate it.
And
enjoy
your
to
time
be
in
here.
Peru. So, Ventura, it's time for you to get moving. Help us out in Peru. You'll see information about how to help out Father Joe and our work down there. I'd like to welcome Dr. Bill Starr. He is a great friend, a brilliant plastic surgeon, and a proud member of Equipo de Peru, or Team Peru. Bill, welcome, and thank you really for all your hard work down there. Now,
thank you, Chris.
You accompanied us to Peru, and really we did this to honor you. You've done such incredible work in Honduras in terms of really helping to get Smile Train going, teach local surgeons to really start taking over, improving their techniques. And it's gotten a little more dangerous in Honduras. At least last time I went, the hotel I was in had armed guards and barbed wire. So we made a decision to go to Peru, partly I think Dr. Morissette and talking about Joe Ewan and the like. When we had our little fiesta, you were still doing surgery, so I know you like to do surgery. So what draws you to Peru, and what kind of cases did you do while you were down there?
Why did I go to Peru? I went to Peru because Mike Morissette, the oral surgeon that went with us, had a friend down there that had several cases that needed a second opinion or maybe some help to complete. So we were invited down there by a plastic surgeon there, and I thought it would be an interesting place to go. Why did I go there?
Yeah, what draws you to take time away from your practice?
Well, I think there's 2 reasons why I do that. One reason is the personal satisfaction you get from helping others, and I mean helping others that don't have, they can't help themselves. Not just anybody that says, I need some help, but somebody that really can't help themselves and maybe otherwise wouldn't get treatment if it wasn't for somebody donating their time or energy. And you just don't have to donate money to causes. I think you can donate your time, energy, or in our example, we donated our expertise. The other reason we went is for excitement. It's an adventure. Going to Honduras with friends like you and Mike and Terry was fun, and I look forward to it. I look forward to an adventure. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what you're going to see. You don't know what kind of environment you're going to be working in. So that's another point that I'm interested in going.
Well, what's the operating environment? How is it different in Peru than here?
it's like operating here 50 years ago. The equipment, the medications in some ways, other ways are up to date, but sometimes the medication is not the same, the equipment's not the same, anesthesia machines aren't the same, instruments aren't the same, medical records, charting, it's different.
Yeah, I just remember one time we were in the Honduras, and some great hospital had given them their anesthesia machine, and we were all pretty much passing out because the gas was leaking out and there's no scavenging, and we're trying to resuscitate the anesthesiologist practically. So it is best when we give them enough resources to have really what's needed to provide the proper care. Well, while you were there, what are some specific cases and surgeries? What kind of things came up?
Well, we did several different types of procedures. We did a repair of a bilateral cleft lip with one. Second case was repair of a cleft palate in an older girl, a 10-year-old girl. We had a young girl who lost her thumb to an accident, a work-related accident, and we built her a new thumb. We took care of a fisherman that lost his thumb when a fishing line became entangled around the thumb and pulled the tip off. We saw several patients with burns, different types of burns, both electrical burns and flame burns. We saw patients with different types of tumors.
Could you describe maybe, so this little girl says, gosh, I'm going to go with my mother to work in the mango packing factory, and what happened?
Well, she went to work with her mom. She was only 9, I believe. And her mom didn't have anybody to leave her with, so she took her with them. And at the mango packing factory, they had this machine that wraps the mangoes in boxes. And she got entangled in that machine. Unfortunately, it initially was wrapping around her body, but she was able to get her thumb between the saran wrap and her chest wall, protecting her from being strangled. Unfortunately, before they could turn it off, it had ripped off the end of her thumb, and she was thumbless basically for about 2 or 3 weeks when she came into the clinic without a thumb. And I was asked by the surgeon down there if there's anything that we could do for her, and there was. We could certainly had the expertise to reconstruct a new thumb.
That's magnificent, and really an example of the kinds of things, and now he'll know or have a better idea of how to approach that himself. How do you do that? Well, we don't have any fish tanks yet where we can grow thumbs.
No, that's right. What you have to do a couple things you need in your hand. You need the ability to pinch, which requires the thumb, and you need the ability to grab or grasp. And if you only have one of those, your hand is only half functioning. So what we did was we built a new thumb, and the thumb is composed of bone and soft tissue in this case. Soft tissue we got by elevating the flap, taking skin and fat from her groin and lifting it up and wrapping the thumb in it. And the bone we got from taking some from her hip bone. So the procedure went like this. The patient was taken to the operating room, we put her on the table, and she was given general anesthetic. We removed a hip bone from her hip, about the length of a thumb, a normal thumb, a little bit longer actually, because you'll lose some of it. And we took a wire and impaled that piece of bone into the end of her, what was left of her thumb. And then we took the bone that was now impaled, attached to the rest of the base of her thumb, and we wrapped it in skin from her abdomen and groin. And we'll leave it like that for 2 to 3 weeks, and then detach this part of the pedicle. It's called a pedicle, the attachment between the groin and the thumb. We detach that. And then she'll have a kind of like a sausage-shaped thumb, which will work because you can use it as a pinching device, but it won't look good. So after that, then we take a liposuction cannula and liposuction out the fat that came from her hip off the thumb to recontour a new thumb. So basically, she'll end up, after a couple more operations, with a functional, fairly normal-looking thumb.
Well, I'd stand and applaud at being able to bring that little girl back a functioning hand. I mean, again, when we went down there, it's to honor you and the the things that you're able to bring those countries. Part of it, I think you're mentioning, is if we can prevent accidents, much as we are with our trauma service here, we try and keep away from drinking and driving, and anybody who comes into our emergency room, we're checking a blood alcohol level, giving them blood alcohol and drug counseling. What kinds of accidents occur in an undeveloped country like that? You're talking about severe burns, and what are the kinds of things, and then how do you go about repairing those?
Burns are a problem in third world countries. The reason being that they use the fire as a central portion of the home environment. Everybody works around the fire, they eat around the fire, adults and children really don't understand the dangers of fire. So they fall in it, or they get splashed with hot water that's hanging over the end of the fireplace. So the incidence of burns in children and adults in third world countries is much higher. Another huge problem they have is electrical burns. Yeah. And that problem is there because the electrical wires are just strung from house to house, and no one really has any rules on how to string it or how to support it, and they're always breaking and falling, and people walking into these wires at all times, not knowing what they're walking into. Sometimes it's just a wire that's not hot, sometimes it is a hot wire, and when that happens, they sustain significant, serious electrical burns.
And so do you do skin grafting, or how do you, here I think you kind of use a skin expander. How do you go about preparing for a skin graft for something like that?
For burns, what you do is first of all, you have to stabilize the burn. And to do that, it requires fluid resuscitation, giving them a lot of liquids, controlling the infection, removing all the dead skin. And once you've removed the dead skin, controlled the infection, and the wound is clean, you could cover it with a skin graft, which means taking skin from another part of your body and putting it over the raw surfaces.
Now, you're bringing a lot of these skills, or taking the skills that we're picking up here with our trauma service. You've recently made a transition, going from private practice with cosmetic surgery and estheticians, and I think you had your own line of skin creams and so forth.
That's right.
To the county hospital, to a trauma service. What inside you made you do that?
It was just a time to change the way I was living, my lifestyle. I was working in both places. I was doing cosmetic surgery and reconstructive surgery, and I had the opportunity to choose between the two. I enjoyed doing both, but I had the opportunity of doing one or the other, and I believe I do enjoy reconstructive surgery more than cosmetic surgery. Although they're both fun and they're both important and people need both of them, mm-hmm. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work at County Hospital.
Well, we present our hands and our face to the world, and I know you have an interest in hands and the face as well. So thank you, Bill, really, for all that you do, and knowing that the skills that you brought to Peru are available to people right here in Ventura. Ventura, we're going to be right back. A very important part of our team was Dr. David Perlmutter, who joins us today. But what brought you along? What made you want to come to Peru?
I had been going down to Honduras on a regular basis, and didn't seem the need was as great, and I was looking for a new place, and you mentioned that you were going down to Peru, so I asked to come along.
You joined us, and so we were seeing the kids, and we'd see you over there with adults and your own interpreter to really help you through, although I think you're getting pretty good at this. So what kinds of illnesses did you see?
Main things we saw that I was concerned about was the high blood pressure that was untreated. Many of them knew they had hypertension but had run out of medications or couldn't afford medicine. And the diabetes, which was a large number of diabetics, and similarly untreated. And the first few days when we went out, we checked their blood pressures, and we had several that were over 200, completely untreated. And we were able to bring it down with a very simple medication. And the diabetics were in the 400, 500 category too.
When we met towards the end, because really this was kind of an exploratory trip, we met with an internist from the hospital, a pediatrician from the hospital, pulmonologist from the hospital, both from their public and private system. And they're looking at us as Americans and going, well, what can we bring? What are you trying to bring to us?
Yeah.
What kind of resources do we have here? Who will be our partners here to help these patients with diabetes and hypertension?
The hospital has been, we've been able to get medications, generic type medications, which are relatively very inexpensive, and just takes a moderate amount of the medication and proper control of the blood pressure to prevent or at least delay a lot of these complications like the renal failure. They don't even need dialysis. Majority of all the dialysis patients are diabetics, and if they're fairly well controlled, that can be often prevented. And so we're able to get medicines from here, and there's another group going down in April apparently, and they will be carrying the medicines down to Father Joe to be dispensed.
We have a green suitcase. We sure brought down a bunch of medications the first time around. They sure didn't last long. And we're really talking to prevent renal failure, just pennies a day for the medication?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the advantages we've found that, interestingly enough, the medications, although they may go from 10 to 20 to 40 milligrams per pill, they cost the same. And so we've got larger pills, which can then be bought down there and cut into the appropriate sizes, and for just a penny or so a pill.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, you've been to other, we were talking about the Honduras. When did you start doing these kinds of medical mission trips? You felt it in your heart for...
Well, it wasn't quite that altruistic. I love to travel, and opportunity came up to travel into southern Mexico and other areas with a medical missionary group, with the Christian medical missionaries, as a matter of fact, and seeing the poverty and what needed to be done, and how much better off we were than they were, provided the incentive to go and do a lot more. I brought my kids down with me, and they learned a lot.
So you've been doing this for a couple years?
About 35, 40 years.
Yeah, and so so there's something that you're getting back.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is the big thing. Actually, you get strokes. You get a good feeling about helping people, and they show their appreciation, and all of that just makes you feel better. And my kids picked up on that when they were down there and have carried on.
What happened there towards the end, before our part of the group went to Machu Picchu? They have any kind of fiesta for us?
Oh yes, they did. Quite a fiesta, as a matter of fact. We drove down to a spot that was brightly lit and decorated. They put on quite a show, to say the least, with dancing and singing.
So did you get involved in the dancing? I know I saw the native Peruvian dancers. I think we had the national champions there, how they got them there. And...
Right. Not as much as you did.
All right.
Yeah, you were dancing with the kids a lot too, and the children would come up and grab you by the hand and pull you to the, as you remember, to the middle of the ring and start dancing, and it went on for hours. It seemed like.
Yeah, I think it was called loco dancing, and definitely with all the balloons, everything else going on, it was pretty loco.
Yeah, that was quite a splendor.
Well, I really thank you for coming in and sharing your experience and strength and hope for other people who'll be going down. Oh. So Ventura, it's time again for you to get moving down to Peru. Physicians, hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, time for you to help out. Pennies a day, we can save lives. When you put on a shoe, you have to have shoelaces. The shoe falls right off. And with me today is Sue Wallace. Sue is our shoelaces, putting our cleft lip and palate team, holding it together somehow. Sue, you just came back from Peru.
We did.
And so tell us a little bit about the clinics and how they were. You saw them as a nurse, I saw them as a doctor, and what happened with the clinics there?
The clinic experience was really truly amazing. We had the experience of working in this facility that Father Joe has actually built in the parish complex, and it's all brand new. It's set up to accommodate at least 2 or 3 physicians, and there's an operating room where they are at this point doing eye surgeries and some hernia repairs, and they hope to be able to expand the services that they're now providing. So our first day in Peru, you and Maria Arizmendi and also Dr. Perlmutter actually saw the patients. What I did at the clinic was work with the staff who work actually for the parish. There's a nurse, Veronica, and there are several other people who assist her. And we kind of filtered through all of these mothers who had brought their infants, their toddlers, many small children into the clinic, basically did vital signs to determine who was really the sickest. We tried to give some priority to those who were the most ill, but we did weights and heights and temperatures and blood pressures, and then distributed them among the physicians to try to get the most appropriate care for them as quickly as possible. Medicine was also provided for the kids by the parish. I believe they have a lot of donations from other teams that come down there. They're able to buy some medications through donations, mostly from the States, I think, and we brought a lot of medications with us. So there was a little pharmacy set up where Betsy, who is one of the staff people at the parish, under the direction and supervision of Veronica, the nurse who supervises all of the services medically at the parish, provided the medicine. We brought toothbrushes and toothpaste and some other little things to make the experience a little more pleasant and to encourage better health among them. And the next few days, our clinics were held out in pueblos that were a ways out of town, and that was truly a different and amazing and inspiring experience for all of us, I think. They were held in, the pueblos themselves actually are just rows and rows in sand and dirt of little dwellings really on top of each other. Some are made of plywood. People who had more money had a little more sturdier little dwellings. Others had basically woven mats. So the clinics were held in chapels, and the little chapels were walls of woven mats with some kind of corrugated roof, all held together with sticks of bamboo, basically. So with the parish staff, we brought in tables. The doctors were set up and partitioned off with basically sheets. And the patients, I think, were sort of pre-screened, and so we knew approximately how many people would be coming there. And we had children and adults. Dr. Perlmutter was seeing mostly adult patients. You and Dr. Arizmendi saw lots of children. I think in 3 days of clinics, we figured at least 100 patients, maybe more. And people waited, and they brought their little plastic chairs. They sat outside in the sand and dirt. And we were, again, able to provide medications. I helped the staff to kind of sort through all of these patients to get a better idea of what their medical problems actually were, so that the doctors had at least some basic information about the conditions that they would be seeing in these patients. People in the pueblos are always happy. It was really incredible considering the really poor living conditions that we saw for them.
Well, what else happened in the pueblo? I know there was a remarkable experience for yourself in terms of...
just about everything about the pueblo was a pretty moving and emotional experience for me, and I think others among us felt the same way too. I pretty much had no idea what this experience was going to be like, and we were told, oh, well, we'll probably take bags of food out to people, we'll take clothing out to people, and I never could have imagined what that was going to be like. There are huge bags of clothing that are brought in, I think in containers actually from the United States, and donors who provide assistance for this parish. And we went around in this huge truck, and Freddie from the parish is yelling, las ropas, ropa. when we got back to the church, there had to be at least 200 people. There were hundreds of children. And they all were in a very orderly fashion, basically in line. And so we brought these huge bags of clothing, spread tarps in the dirt of the little chapel, and basically we all started dumping piles of clothes out and trying to sort through them. And they have a system of managing this, which allows about 200 people in about an hour or so to come in and choose 5 articles of clothing. And so the first group of 10 people came in, and they're kind of given a time, and all of a sudden it was just like overwhelming to me. I said in my heart, I could not believe these people that a few articles of clothing meant so much to them. You really realize how little they have, how much they need, and how happy they are with so little. It's it was an amazing experience.
I think it was also the way in which it was done. It's really small things, but done with great love. And I remember we had in the pueblo one of the children had taken a Pepsi bottle and made a little aquarium out of it, and it's like a television for them to watch those fish go around. Well, I know Father Joe had talked about the Shire. Going out to this hobbit-like place where there are little bamboo lashed together. It used to be an orphanage, and you visited the orphanage.
We had the opportunity to tour a lot of the things that Father Joe has created. He dreamed these dreams, and he actually did them. And a lot of people talk about helping the poor or doing this. He has the visions that he's created and actually come to reality there are amazing. The orphanage has at least 100 children in this particular facility. They have a garden. They have rooms that are dorm areas, but they're really, really cute with bunk beds. The girls have them all decorated in their own way. The kids they couldn't wait for us to get through the gate. They were right there hanging on to us, and they're dragging us. They wanted to show us where they live. They learn to sew. They make a lot of really beautiful, creative clothing items and hand-stitched things. They danced for us. They did some traditional dances, and that was really fun to see them do that. But the care that they receive there, these children all look clean. They look very well nourished. They look well cared for. You can see the attachment that they have to each other. They have the opportunity as they get older to go to college if they choose to, and they get a lot of assistance as they grow up in being prepared to step out into the world on their own.
I think a couple things. We had the school there as well, where there's just not enough school time. Kids were having to go to school half time, and then another group would come in, and Father Joe building a school. And we saw that thing go up faster than
over a week.
Over a week. It started with the one room and moving through. But let me just, so why do you go?
It's at home when I've gotten back, and this has happened, it happened after this trip and it's happened before, friends and family will say to me, oh, it's such a wonderful thing you do for these people. And in my heart, I feel kind of selfish because I really feel like it just is such an amazing thing for me to experience, that I feel like I gain so much out of just understanding more appreciation of what the world is really like, what the struggles of other people are. And it feels really good to be able to do, even if it's one or two little things. It's a little Band-Aid on just a huge worldwide problem. But I hope that we've done good for them. I hope that we leave them just a little bit better off than they were. But the truth is that it feels really good to be able to do this. And maybe that's why I've been a nurse for 41 years.
Sue, thank you for all you do. It's so important that we share our gifts, be it pounding a nail or checking a blood pressure, and to share it with the less fortunate. We'll be right back. Well, I'd like to welcome Dr. Maria Arizmendi. Dr. Arizmendi was the pediatrician member of our team. And when we talk about love and service, Dr. Arizmendi is, we had a great time. What kinds of things did you end up doing while we were in Peru?
We got to see a variety of different patients, mostly at the clinics that were provided for us at the actual parish. They have a clinic there, and they set up another makeshift clinic, basically inside of a smaller church in one of the towns for us as well. And we got to see various different patients, children of various ages with different complaints. Specifically, a lot of asthma is one of the things that we saw a lot of dermatitis issues, and some other more interesting children who have more chronic issues that either weren't really being followed up very well, or they had no clue that they even existed or potentially could be there as well.
Well, when I think of a clinic inside a church, so it was old and...
No, not at all. It was actually a very, very nice clinic. So the parish has a very large complex to it, and they have various different services that they provide there. And one of the bigger ones is this clinic there was money that was donated by U.S. physicians and parishioners to create this clinic, and it looks very, very new, very nice, clean, great location for a clinic, actually.
I think that's really what's so important at Mandalay Bay. My clinic is that it's respectful for the patients to really have a nice facility to go to. I know they did eye surgery there. There's a big problem with the dust and the sand of the desert causing pterygium, where they actually could lose their sight, and a true miracle to have physicians come down, have that clinic built, and be able to return their sight. Yeah. Well, while you were there, what kinds of things did you see? I know out of the 40 some odd kids I saw that first day, probably about half of them needed services in a big city. They'd all come in, gee, I have a cold, and then you go, well, what's that 3-foot scar running down the center of your body? And so what kinds of things did you see that really struck you? Yeah,
in particular, there was one child who was, I'd say about 7 years old, and just looking at her, there were some dysmorphic features, and then in examining her chest, she had pectus, and so deformity in her chest wall, and also listening to her heart, I heard a murmur. I mean, and she was there because she was getting services from the social work team, but also in addition to that, they wanted to have her checked out because she had a cold. So similar stories, but. There are other children, for example, that wanted a second opinion too. There was a child who had multiple renal problems or kidney issues, and had various studies done and had been evaluated by various physicians in subspecialties as well, and had been seen in Lima. And the parents wanted to have more information. Basically, that was another pair of eyes, and I guess a perspective from a physician from the United States to see whether there was anything else that we could add to their care.
I know we've been looking at telemedicine. We've bought 2 iPads now, and they're ready to do FaceTime, so we can actually look. We've been emailing back and forth with Veronica, the goddess of the clinic there, and Dr. Perlmutter is going to be helping out with high blood pressure and diabetes. Just whatever we can do. Did you were able to go to the hospital and look at their pediatric ward?
We were. We went to one of the major teaching hospitals in Piura, and there we got to see the pediatric ward, met some of the staff there, including meeting with some of the residents, the resident team, and getting to see how the ward ran, and actually got to see a couple of the patients with you, and as well as being able to interact and try to get also information to continue to have this connection with the teams there for this FaceTime, hopefully, and being able to give some type of pediatric consultation to them as well.
And then the clinic out in the desert, what was that like? The flooring was a little different than that in your clinic? Yes. The walls a little different?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the clinic that was created for us in the church at this in this pueblo had dirt as the ground, as our floor, and then the walls were made out of the bamboo. And then they created these examination rooms for us, so a place basically to examine and have a consultation with each patient and their parent. And we had fans going because it was nice and hot in the middle of the desert. So no air conditioning as was seen in the clinic over at the parish. So it was definitely a different environment, but everyone was very excited to be there. And as far as the patients and the people that were there, the families, they were lined up, ready to see us, and everything I think went pretty smoothly.
Well, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions here. Sure. What kind of services? So when we're here, we just call up, or we'll write out a note for a consultation or some extra services. What kind of services were available through the church?
So through the church, they have the biggest service I thought that was helpful for us, in particular as physicians who are trying to get additional referrals or services, and what is the social services or social workers. They have what they tried to do is for any patients or children who need extra services, in particular if they need to go get lab work or x-rays, and because sometimes families can't afford to pay for these services, then the parish themselves, they provide some of the money, the funds, to be able to get these services. The other thing was some kids need consultations, and as far as pediatric consultations and referrals, they all get sent to Lima. So Lima's a pretty far distance from Piura, so a lot of them need transportation, and so some of that was also provided via the social services available through the parish.
We, as we started our day, we got a definite schedule, and some of it was the clinic time, but
right.
Can you describe your day? How did it start out?
So in the mornings we would have breakfast together and then go into either the clinic or something else that was provided for us on our list of things to do, going to the hospital. In the afternoon, or middle of the day, we'd have our lunch, and then in the afternoon we'd have either more clinic time or being a part of some of the community outreach or services that were provided as well, like donating the clothing and going to Mass in the evening time, having dinner together, and as well as enjoying some other fun time that was not planned.
I think for me it was this, a very spiritual experience. I can see kids' ears, and I'm happy that we're able to give them extra services and consultation, and I really hope that we're going to be able to help improve their level of health care. As I was in the back of the van, or the back of the truck with sitting on top of all those duffel bags full of clothes, you really felt something different about the Peru people. And if I were to drive down the streets anywhere else in the back of a truck, I don't know if I'd get the same response. How are the Peru people for you?
Beautiful. I mean, very, very nice and happy, and there's a lot of formalness as well, as far as being able to as far as seeing me as a physician and other physicians as well as people to be respected, and also just very loving. Everyone wanted to hug and hold hands and kiss, and it was just very nice. It's just, if you're not used to it from in some cultures, like even in the U.S., you're not used to having every single person want to hug you or kiss you, then it's different, but it's very nice. It's a very happy experience.
What brought you to be a pediatrician, and what made you interested in something like going to Peru?
Well, pediatrics has always been one of those things that, for me, was one of those things that I always thought that I wanted to work with children, and I wasn't sure exactly in what venue, like whether it would be teaching in an elementary school or a physician, or I wasn't sure. But really, what it came down to is medicine is one of the biggest things that I was interested in, and in particular for myself, I think growing up, being a child who was kind of the interpreter for my parents, growing up going to see doctors, I saw that medicine was for me, and then one of the things that I wanted to be able to do is provide it in a culturally sensitive way which for me was working with mostly Spanish-speaking families and communities. And I think pediatrics is one of those fields that you can do a lot of preventative medicine, which for me was one of those key things, and getting involved with teaching families and providing information and education, I think is just one of those biggest things that I think you can do a lot to hopefully not just help the child grow healthy, but also family to grow healthy and make good choices for life. So that's one of the reasons why I went into pediatrics.
Well, how about as a woman? Certainly when I was going to medical school, if we had 10 women out of 100, it was unusual. What was your medical school like for young women who might want to become a physician? And
yeah, I think that maybe there was an exception to the rule in terms of my class in particular. So I went to the University of Illinois at Chicago, and it's one of the biggest medical schools in terms of the number of students that are accepted into medical school every year. And I would say about 50% were female, and the other were, you know, so 50-50 men and women. So quite a few, yeah.
Well, Maria, thank you so much, really, for coming with us. A blessing to the people of Peru, and we got back a lot more than we gave,
yes,
in terms
definitely.
of all the love that came back. So we're going to be right back. We've got another guest coming. Gosh, several years ago, Barry Tronstad from the Technology Development Center came to us and said, "Oh, can you come up with a show?" I hope Barry is proud of what we've done. Teresa Johnson is now helping us by giving us Terry Weezer. Terry is the sensei and guru of this crew out here at the Technology Development Center. How did you get involved with what we're doing?
Well, as you perhaps know, I executive produce a show called GetMoving TV, wildly popular medical show here in Ventura with the host Dr. Chris Landon. And I'd like to say that late at night I got the call that said, "We need you in Peru." Didn't happen that way. But I did get the call that said you needed me in Peru, and I showed up essentially to document the team and the work that they did in the country.
Well, I think that's, you know, when I watch you teach, you're just an incredible teacher. You have an incredible way with students, but doing the same thing day in, day out, I wanted to get you out of town, and plus there was something that you needed to get to leave this country, a passport. So it's about time to get you out of town. So besides being our videographer and people are seeing the work that you do, and I think we got your creative juices going again, what kinds of things, when you were down there, we all have gifts, as Father Joe was saying, and what kinds of activities did you get involved in where you end up getting more of a gift back and then you end up giving?
Definitely. My job was to document the mission. I mean, we've got these medical professionals that are giving of their time. I was blown away by that, and I was definitely all about documenting the medical portion of the trip. But then there was a human interest side. The children in the country are beautiful. Every child I saw, you just wanted to grab in your arms and take home, and you know, give them love and life, and a lot of human interest things along the side. I can think one night of Father Joe, our gracious host, telling all of us to be downstairs at 5 o'clock because there was a birthday party for Beethoven, and not the composer, the dog. So Father Joe's dog turned 6, and he felt that we needed to honor the dog. So he gathered together about 50 of the town's children, and we're talking piñata, confetti, every kind of food and drink you can think of. And the dog had a wonderful time. I think the children did too. So little side stories like that, seeing the love and the dedication that Father Joe had for the people of the village, and being able to participate in that.
Well, I think that it is the simple things done with great grace. When I looked at the children, I go, oh, they must have a clothing factory here, because everybody had a San Francisco 49er shirt, or a Japanese manja shirt, or a Chicago Bears shirt, or a Packers shirt, and then we found out kind of how they got those clothes.
We found out that, once again, Father Joe, in his infinite wisdom, has sponsors and supporters that see to it that the kids are taken care of. And again, we got the call. We were to be downstairs at a specific time. They loaded us on a flatbed truck. We drove out into the pueblo, and the pueblo is just the poorest of poor. A shanty town is a compliment. these little shacks of cardboard and tin. As our truck came into a clearing where a small chapel was, they unloaded all these donations of clothes, and God, it was the most amount of good I could do for the least amount of effort in my life. To see the smiles on those kids' face was phenomenal.
I think it's simple things done with great love. And I tell you, those women had the same predatory look on their faces that Nordstrom's Outpost shopping sales look like as they're looking for the right color and shape and all that. Well, we filmed a lot of footage. What's your editing schedule going to be like?
You know, it's pretty amazing. We would wake up early in the morning to start our day, our mission, and we literally had an itinerary that we would follow. And we'd get up and we would visit the pueblo or the school or various things that the church asked us to do. And then we would get home, you know, anywhere from 6 to 7 at night. We had wonderful accommodations by Peruvian standards, cold showers, but you know what, you're so darn tired at the end of the day, the cold shower didn't matter. We would attend Mass with Father Joe each night, and then we'd all sit down for a communal meal afterwards. So about 8 o'clock, 8:30, we'd start to wind down, and my creative juices were on overload from all this wonderful footage that I had. And I would generally edit till about 2 or 3 in the morning, and as fast as we could acquire the footage, get it edited and compressed and thrown up to YouTube. We had a fan base, a GetMoving TV fan base here in the States that were following everything we did. I was also amazed that via my iPhone and laptop that I could Skype, so I was able to talk to Laura, my girlfriend, at home. Sitting on the edge of my bed, editing in a third world country, talking to my girlfriend in the middle of the night was just unbelievable what the technology allows us to do and how we could use that technology to, I think, at a later date, and perhaps you'll want to talk about the iPad project that we're working on, how we're going to use technology to help better these people's lives. Well,
I think that is an important part. For you, it was fun, and I did it with my secretary, my office manager. We put it on FaceTime. Apple, you should be donating something here, and walked around the mission. We walked around our hotel, we walked around wherever we were. As long as we had Wi-Fi, we could be there live, thousands of miles away. And so the same kind of thing is able to occur for medical specialties, for looking at a lesion or some advice or whatever it takes to really help these people out and staying in communication. The world is so much smaller now, and they're with us in more than just a couple pictures and memories.
Well, I was just amazed at the types of surgeries and the way our team help people's lives over there. It was an awesome experience to participate in.
Yeah, they definitely wanted all our credentials ahead of time, and but we were able to again participate in surgeries. While I was on the pediatric ward, there's a child who is having respiratory difficulties, and I was able to scope the child and help them to manage another child with severe asthma, and they didn't have the kinds of equipment that we have here, but we were able to modify what they had. So bringing down your skills to help document this so we can get more people up here. Terry, thank you so much for helping us out and documenting. I hope we got those creative juices
My pleasure, Doctor.
Going again. Apple, Skype, it's time for you to get down to Peru, help us out. Just time for you to get moving. Welcome to GetMoving TV. I'm Dr. Chris Landon, and I serve as your host. As you can see, Ventura, we got moving. We're here in Peru. As you know, we've been going to the Honduras for cleft lip and palate surgeries with Dr. Bill Starr, Dr. Mike Morissette, Sue Wallace. Do you want to start again, Terry?
Enfermera, no me hagas sufrir. Enfermera, no me hagas llorar, cúrame las penas del corazón. Enfermera, dame de tu amor.